Other matches we have here in the middle seat, Kent Ketter on Dredge playing against Nicholas Byrd on Ad Nauseum. Someone we've seen with certainly results of his own playing that deck. No surprise to see him there. In the last seat, we have Matt Bimonte on Mono Black Zombies. First player we're seeing not to splash white. His opponent, Zach Allen, Teamer Dynavolt Tower.
Ooh.
So we're going to start Hoogland on a fetch land. For Stevens, it's going to be Mox Diamond. Discarding. It looks like Bazooka Bog. And then it will be Exploration turn 1. Lands can have some really great draws here. So make Wasteland Wasteland and say go. 3 mana on turn 1.
Reasonable.
Having played a couple tournaments with lands, these draws can feel nigh unbeatable when you pick them up. You know? But yeah, I have 3 lands on my first turn, and 2 of them are Wastelands.
As long as your opponent's not casting, say, Dark Ritual on their next turn.
Yeah, then you lose.
You feel pretty good about this stuff. Dark Confidant, that's not really something you're concerned about here.
Yeah, Jeff does make Dark Confidant off a pair of basic lands, so playing around those Wastelands. There isn't a payoff yet for Stevens. You know, a card like Life from the Loam in play yet, so there's still some hope for Jeff. For Stevens, though, it's going to be Thespian Stage and another Wasteland.
It's a lot of Wastelands.
And Punishing Fire for the Dark Confidant.
And Hoogland is actually extremely heavy on basics this weekend. His deck contains 2 basic planes and a full 4 basic swamps.
That's a lot. Stevens will then use the ability on Thespian Sage to copy the swamp. But actually, Jeff Stevens is out of cards. He doesn't have any sort of engine going, so Jeff's going to make a Stoneforge Mystic, and right now, this is actually a fine spot for Jeff.
Yeah, Stevens will need to produce Grove of the Burn Willows or Dark Depths pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of houses, right? Life from the Loam, Grove of the Burn Willows, Gamble, Dark Depths. These are all good draws, but until Stevens hits one, his deck doesn't really do anything.
Well, how about Grove of the Burn Willows?
Fine.
Right on cue.
There we go. Okay,
Kill your Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, pick up the Punching Fire. He's going to cast it before that Mystic can sneak Batterskull into play. So now with all of Hoogland's X2s dead here, you see Thalia from Hoogland. How's he going to really get ahead? Stevens was able to Wasteland away Hoogland's third land.
Hoogland's deck also contains 3 Wastelands, though had he produced one there, you have to figure that would be pointed
that
at
would
the
have happened, right? Yeah, Stevens draws a card, and he'll just Punishing Fire down the Thalia. Marsh Flats the draw for Hoogland, so he does get to keep developing his mana. He needs to hit something, though, before Stevens gets an engine going. And he'll cast Umezawa's Jite.
Not the most impressive card in this matchup.
No, the fight seems to be over Jeff Hoogland's creatures. Swords to Plowshares a pickup. That doesn't really play against this deck. I suppose you can Swords away the first Merit Lage.
Yeah, it buys a little bit of time in that regard.
Yeah, as long as if Stevens finds Dark Depths, it's a good card. If Stevens finds Life from the Loam, it doesn't matter.
And Thespian Sage now copying Grove of the Burn Willows. That's going to make these Punishing Fires happen a bit faster.
Yeah, I suppose Stevens can just win the game doing that, given enough time. Hoogland.
Yeah, being able to cast 3 a turn, and Hoogland only gaining 2 life.
Picks up Horizon Canopy, kind of daring Stevens to Wasteland that. So now we start getting some burn. So Grove, Punishing Fire deals 2 to Hoogland, and Stevens buys it back for 1. So it's a 3 mana deal 1. It's not impressive yet until he really gets a second Punishing Fire.
Well, how about this?
Well, here's a Dark Depths from Jeff Stevens. So that'll threaten here. We see Liliana of the Veil to pick up for Hoogland. It's actually a mighty nice card here. I guess it still gets Punishing Fire down, doesn't it? Just like kind of everything does in this matchup.
Yeah.
Hoogland has a Swords to Plowshares for the first Merit Lage. So this is fine. You see Thespian Stage will copy Dark Depths. Dark Depths dies to the Legend rule, and then the Staged Depths makes a 20/20. Hoogland will Swords to Plowshares, so Stevens goes up to 40. Which means time to go back to work on Hoogland's life total, down to 19.
Death of 1,000 paper cuts.
It's really waiting for that Life from the Loam or Gamble to show up.
At 40 life, he'll have a lot of time to find it. Not to mention that Punishing Grove engine is going to shut down basically everything that Jeff is up to in the interim.
Arid Mesa from Hoogland. And this is going to be interesting. If Hoogland wants to, he can cast Batterskull with this 5 lands. But if he does, his Canopy will get Wastelanded, which means he doesn't get to draw a card off it. It looks like Hoogland accepts those terms. He's got to be fast. Even a second Punishing Fire would mean 4 damage for Stevens. I guess now that the stage is gone, there's only 1 Grove for Stevens. He can't actually put together 4 damage to kill the Germ token yet.
With the Punishing Fire in hand, you cast it off of the Mox Diamond, rebuy it with the Grove, and cast it again.
Right, he has to set up in 1 turn.
I suppose he has multiple Taigas now, so he can cast it that way.
And he actually has 2 copies of Punishing Fire. So he's picked up a second one, so he will kill the Germ token on Hoogland's end step. Draws another Thespian stage for Stevens. He's trying to reassemble the combo. And it just seems here, Hoogland's not being able to present a particularly strong clock. See, stage, even if he never finds the combo, stage can turn into Grove, and 2 Groves plus 2 Punishing Fires. Stevens actually could just end the game that way.
Yep. It's not the fastest way to end the game, but when your opponent's just casting creatures that can be targeted by red spells.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at Hoogland's list. I'm not sure any of his threats even survive through double Grove, double Punishing Fire. I don't know.
The majority of what he's up to dies to single Punishing Fire.
Yeah, but with double, it may actually just be a lock. Here's Liliana of the Veil, but everything here gets burned down by the Punishing Fires. Plus, Hoogland will get rid of a Fatal Push.
Yeah, that one wasn't going to do anything.
Sure. With Liliana at 4, yeah. End step, Stevens will shoot down the Planeswalker. Another Thespian stage here. Yeah, Jeff's choice interesting this weekend. This matchup really does look hard.
Yes.
Hopefully he'll have something out of the sideboard to fight against this. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, some surgical extractions, a rest in peace. That'll come into play.
And that's enough for Jeff. Not able to beat the 2 Punishing Fires. So game 1 goes to Jeff Stevens. Over on our other matches, we have Kent Ketter on Dredge versus Nicholas Byrd on Ad Nauseam.
That was kind of a 2 ships passing in the night kind of matchup.
Yeah, it's actually a matchup which tends to be pretty reasonable for Ad Nauseam. Dredge has a lot of resiliency, but Ad Nauseam, well, the way I like to describe it with combo, it's a very consistent, it's a turn 4 deck. It's rarely faster, but it's rarely slower.
Right. With some Angel's Graces, you should be able to buy plenty of time against Ad Nauseam, or against Dredge, rather.
Yeah, you in a pinch you can use, your Unlifes and Angel's Graces are very good fogs in the matchup. And it looks like Zach Allen on Teamer Dynavolt actually defeats Matt Bimonte game 1, so Allen goes up 1. Modern player still playing here. Teamer Dynavolt versus Zombies, an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if Teamer's doing fine in that matchup too. We saw Chris Anderson with a Dynavolt deck earlier.
Presumably a red control deck is skewing towards Magma Sprays for this weekend, which is going to help a lot in a matchup like that.
Yeah. So on the deck red sheets, I know Hoogland, Ketter, and Bimonte are a very strong team when it comes to play, but the matchups here aren't doing them any favors. These are all tough.
Yes. Yeah, kind of looks like bad matchups across the board.
Yeah. Kent Ketter, though, he's the lone winner here game 1. He takes game 1 over Nicholas Byrd. So the team split the game 1s. Stevens, Byrd, and Allen, though, with a slight advantage. And what's going to be hard is that I think this is some pressure if you're in Matt Bimonte's seat, right? Counting on Hoogland to win this legacy matchup, that seems rough.
Yes.
So if you're in Bimonte's spot, you got to think Matt can't afford to lose.
Though things are getting better for Jeff as we look at the sideboards here.
All right.
3 copies of Surgical Extraction, a couple Graph Digger's Cage, 2 Council's Judgment, Phyrexian Revoker, Genialize Zendikar, Batterskull, Collective Brutalities, Elvish Persecution, Toxic Deluge, Rest in Peace, and Aethersworn Canonist. It's really just going to be those Surgical Extractions and this Rest in Peace. Yeah,
the Graveyard Hate, we saw there that Stevens never cast a life from the loam and still won. That's pretty big.
A lot of cards did come out of the graveyard, though. Punishing Fire coming back and forth.
Yeah, and in even sense, Stevens can play a pretty fair game here, right? So he played an exploration. I don't think he really needed it that game. If he literally just plays lands and Punishing Fire and Grove of the Burn Willows every turn, that might be good enough.
Yeah, the exploration largely allowed him to play a bunch of wastelands. He only activated 1, I believe, in the entire course of the game, despite controlling 3.
Right. So this Graveyard Hate, Jeff Hoogland's he's gonna have to control the Grove of the Burn Willows fight. He can't let those Punishing Fires just can't happen again.
Right.
And then once he wins that fight, if he can win that fight, then we're looking at things like then we have to start caring about, okay, is he going to die to a 20/20? Is a loam package going to start?
Right.
On Stevens' side, he's got 4 Sphere of Resistances, 3 Krosan Grips, 2 Throne of Amethyst, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Ratchet Bombs, a Caracas, and a Barbarian Ring. Now, a lot of times, the land sideboard is just built to deal with combo decks, which Jeff isn't.
Right. If you expect that Jeff is going to be on some number of Rest in Peace, Krosan Grips, totally reasonable for fighting that fight.
Yeah, you'd like to have a couple ways to remove Rest in Peace.
You already know about Stoneforge Mystic. You don't really care too much about that card, but it's an extra hedge.
Are you worried if you're in Stevens' seat about losing the Krosan Grip? Hoogland's deck plays 8 discard spells in the main, and I know discard's very weak against lands. It's likely that the discard stays in because Hoogland actually has worse cards he needs to cut.
Yep.
You know, Gideon of the Trials and Fatal Push, just really miserable. Some number, maybe Hymn to Tarak stays in, right?
Yeah.
Especially on the play. Thoughtseize on the play might be okay, right? Hey, maybe I Thoughtseize your Exploration.
Exploration. In some windows, hitting Mox Diamond is significant, even with the Thoughtseize. Yeah, so the discards, they probably are sticking in. Steven's sideboard, I imagine, will be pretty light.
See some sideboarding advice here. Hoogland talking it over with Kent Ketter. Hoogland's certainly someone in Modern you'd want to have on your team to just talk about deck design and sideboarding strategies. For Jeff Hoogland, player from the Bloomington, Illinois area, at 26 years old, he has 15 open top 8s. One of the players with the most top 8s. He's still actually looking for that first win, but very accomplished here. Was really just has crushed Modern in the last year. Has an invitational top 8 to his name as well. Now, you notice he actually streams a lot with Magic and other card games as well, so you can follow him there. It's nice to see him get back into Legacy. I think one of the things you remember, if you missed watching Jeff Hoogland back when we had Legacy Opens every weekend, Jeff Hoogland is one of the players who plays a lot of Legacy, or did, but never plays Brainstorm. And this weekend is really just another one on that path. Turn 1, Inquisition of Kozilek from Hoogland. So the 1-mana discard can stay in as long as he's on the play. We see Mox Diamond, Punishing Fire, and it looks like 5 lands.
Among them, Dark Depths and Thespian Stage.
Yeah, so the combo is there on turn 4. So we see, the lands Dark Depths, Thespian Stage. He does have that sideboard Barbarian Ring. Looks like he has a fetch land and then a cycling land. It's
Barbarian Ring
Tranquil
is...
Thicket.
Barbarian Ring kills everything in Jeff's deck, so that's nice.
Yeah, it's a great free counter spell.
If somehow, say, your Punishing Fire gets surgicaled, you can Life from the Loam back Ring and eventually kill that way.
Speaking of Life from Loam, it was the draw this turn for Jeff Stevens. Hoogland looking back over here. He's got another Thoughtseize. He'll do it. He'll see, a bunch of... Yeah, Steph Stevens says, hey, please take this Loam I drew. I don't think Hoogland's going to do it.
Probably not. I would advise against it.
Takes Punishing Fire. There's no way to get it back yet for Stevens. And Hoogland is going to attempt to wasteland Stevens' fetch land. Stevens sacks in response. This is it's not that Hoogland missed it. He knew this was an option, just determined... Oh, actually, it wasn't. I apologize. It wasn't a fetch land. Okay, so the wasteland actually does work. Stevens cycled the Tranquil Thicket first.
I believe that was a Horizon Canopy
expedition. Yeah, some of these
expedition.
expeditions can be hard. We can miss on them. Yeah, it was Horizon Canopy, so that works. Stevens plays out the Thespian Stage on his turn, and now Hoogland finally will deploy a threat with Dark Confidant.
punishing fires in the graveyard.
That'll
stick around.
He cleared the way out pretty well here. Barbarian Ring for Stevens. And he takes a damage offering, but that does mean he gets to cast this Ratchet Bomb.
Okay, so those have come in off the sideboard.
Dark Confidant draws Hoogland a Bloodstained Mire. Of course, as is wont to do, when you get an extra card off Dark Confidant, it's pretty common then you draw another land. Here's down to 16, Stevens. Hoogland has another Wasteland. It's actually, his hand is pretty full of lands. Let's see what he wants to do here. He's got to be careful about escalating Collector Brutality to take a card out of Stevens' hand, because if Loam is the only card, I believe Hoogland has to take it.
Yeah. It's not a May, and if it's not a May, you can't miss if you see something. Though there's a couple options here.
There are two there's a crop rotation in there.
Looks like crop rotation and exploration.
Right. So he will find things that he can take, fortunately for Hoogland. The worst case scenario would be that there was always Loam and 3 more lands.
Right.
He'd be like, yeah, thanks for putting that in the yard, picks it up.
Of course, if you're not able to cast Loam, dredging it doesn't accomplish a ton.
I guess there's no green mana in play, is there? You know, if that's the case, I want to go back to the turn where Stevens cycled Tranquil Thicket. If it was his only green mana source, maybe he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you might be missing that one.
He does crank the Ratchet Bomb up to 1, however. Draws something red. Looks like Punishing Fire. He'll shoot down Dark Confidant. Plays Dark Depths. As of right now, though, Stevens' deck does need that mana source.
Well,
or maybe not. Just any old land should work.
Yeah. Green mana would be nice. If Jeff doesn't have a Swords to Plowshares or a Wasteland.
All right, so Hoogland does play a Wasteland, and that's going to keep the Dark Depths in check. Looks like Croson Grip drawn for Stevens, so no plays.
Okay, so those have come in. Not very impactful here.
How about something that is impactful? Hoogland, a big draw here. It's going to be a copy of Gideon, Ally of Zendikar. 1 of in the sideboard. He has just enough mana to cast that and leave Wasteland up.
Yep, so Hoogland will get this Gideon online and be insulated against this Dark Depths combo.
Oh, wait, that's not Gideon. That's... Oh, okay, the Kaya Ghost
Chieftain?
Yeah. Ghost Assassin.
This card has a text box.
If you're not familiar with the supplemental products, then you may not have seen this card.
This is from Conspiracy Take the Crown.
That's the second conspiracy, right?
Come
on, do it.
Plus 2. Exile Kaya or a creature you control until end of turn.
Wait, why would I want to do that?
So that Kaya resets loyalty because no, she doesn't have a plus ability, does she? Like you want to reset her because of that? Yeah, it's a 0. That's what it is.
Okay,
yeah,
you
0 to exile it because it does not have a plus ability.
Okay, -1. I drain you for 2. I drain all opponents for 2. -2. Everybody discards and I draw. Oh, this is nice. So that's what Hoogland did on his turn. He's just going to -2, -2, 0, huh?
Yes.
Nice. Stevens continues to lose cards as Hoogland draws more. But Hoagland's got to go fast. 1 Wasteland. So Hoogland takes Stevens' last card. 1 Wasteland still can win this for Jeff Stevens. And now he's feeling like that Ratchet Bomb, I guess he's moving it up to 4 to try to get the Kaya off the board. He's going to copy. This is good. Hoagland's Wasteland with the second Thespian stage. But by doing this, there's an opportunity. Yeah, Hoogland is going to waste away the Dark Depths. So Stevens does not get a Wasteland. But this does mean that if Stevens top decks Dark Depths, he's good. Crop rotation. That's not going to play.
Not until he has a green source. Still off that one.
Looks like Ratchet Bomb, though, is going to go away here, taking care of that Planeswalker. Kaya's gone. That was a very impressive Planeswalker, though.
Yeah, I can't help but feel I'd rather have blue cards, But
it's basically Orzhov Jace.
it has 0 ability, just like Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, it's got a one that draws you like +2 cards on you every time, right? Hoogland activates Shambling Vent and attacks for 4. Stevens down to 8. Looks like he's gonna copy the Shambling Vent with his own Thespian Stage. Nothing much he can do off black and white mana. He'd really like it if Hoogland would play a green mana at some point. But by doing this, he is taking extra damage off Barbarian Ring. Glacial Chasm, the draw for Stevens. No thank you.
Not the ideal spot for Glacial Chasm.
No, I don't want to sack any more lands. And Hoogland, wow, he might get this.
It's looking good.
Okay, on the attack, Stevens uses Barbarian Ring to shoot down Tide Hollow Sculler. Okay, one of those stages copied rings so that you would have red mana to activate it. So Stevens down to 4. One of his stages now does, unfortunately for Stevens, make him take a damage when he taps it.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays Grove of the Burn Willows. Remember, one of those stages is on Barbarian Ring, so Grove is online. And he's going to crop rotate.
This is exploration.
No, it's exploration. My apologies. A Collective Brutality would kill Stevens from here. Hoogland just trying to get those last points in. He knows how tenuous this is. Rest in Peace, now cast by Hoogland. That is a haymaker of a card. Stevens' whole graveyard gone. He'll need to top deck Dark Depths. Here comes Shambling Vent, puts Stevens down to 2. Taiga, the draw. Wait, if he has crop rotation in hand, that works, right?
Yeah, you can go convert that into a Dark Depths and then stage that away.
Liliana of the Veil, though, the draw for Hoogland. That's a huge draw. Unless he casts it pre-combat. Makes both players discard. That's actually going to make this work for Stevens, right?
Yeah, Jeff actually had Council's Judgment.
Yeah. Okay. Crop rotation from Stevens.
The 2020 is not lethal because the Shambling Vent has been gaining Jeff some life. So Hoogland is at 25. So the 20 from Stevens 2020 will leave Hoogland at 5. However, this will eat Hoogland's clock.
Yeah. Well, so it's not so bad in that it can eat the clock. Then I think it has to kill the Liliana.
Yep.
And then Hoogland will get to Council's Judgment it.
Right.
So those things all exile. He gets a 20/20. I mean, I'm trying to wonder if there's a draw here that makes that not the case, however.
Stevens still has Thespian Stage there, so he was able to produce another mana source and another Dark Depths. That's really what he's drawing to now that Hoogland has assembled that Rest in Peace.
Wasteland, the draw for Stevens, so he'll cast that. Council Judgment takes care of the 20/20. And Hoogland plays Tide Hollow Sculler, says go. Thespian Stage is going to copy something. We'll check what it was. Probably Grove of the Burn Willows.
And this Tide Hollow Sculler, well, it was
and
lethal.
It's punishing fire for Stevens. Okay, looks like Thespian Stage copied Wasteland for Stevens. Remember that the punishing fire, because it's Rest in Peace, it's gone now. Another Wasteland on Hoogland's side. Now you got to start wondering how many of these stages and Dark Depths are already in Stevens' yard. Hoogland's going to take the opportunity to waste away another stage. So,
yeah, that definitely was the play.
For Stevens, got to think, okay, he's waiting to draw Croson Grip. He's at 2, but he's alive right now. Here's a fetch land.
And Hoogland has to produce a creature.
Yeah.
Black-white decks, they don't come packed with burn spells.
Does he have another Collective Brutality?
So you had one in the main deck, one in the sideboard. So theoretically, there's another one of those somewhere.
All right. This is, at this moment, it's a good burn spell. Will Stevens go to 1? Sure. 1 and 0 are really, 1 and 2 are basically the same number. He's building up. This is really interesting. Stevens trying to hit. He has up to 2 Krosan Grips remaining. A lot of his combo pieces, you see, Hoogland is counting what's gone here. There's a lot of stages and depths already gone, including Punishing Fires. 1 Loam gone as well. And players are waiting until someone can present a draw. Hoogland hits first. It is Batterskull. Can Stevens respond? He has Gamble. I wonder, what is he gambling for?
It's like Mazavith.
Sure, that works. Until Hoogland draws another threat. All right, don't call it gamble for nothing. Here's 3 cards. Hoogland, 1/3 chance to win. Card number 1, what lost? Punishing Fire. That's not what he gambled for. That's of note, Stevens' 3rd Punishing Fire, so he only has 1 left in the deck. But Maze of Ith, that works. Here's Liliana of the Veil from Hoogland. Life from the Loam and Swords to Plowshares discarded by both players. Thespian Stage from Stevens. And what I turn on to be Gideon of the Trials from Jeff Hoogland. He's got another Planeswalker here. Now Stevens has to read that. What is
So this Gideon, like most Gideons, all Gideons? All Gideons.
Turns into a guy?
Has the ability to attack. I think that draw seals it.
Well, Thespian Stage just copied Maze of Ith. So not yet.
Okay, that's right. Thespian Stage.
I know. Lands is just a delight. And maybe, if he draws Krosan Grip, he can start going.
At least this makes it so that Stevens has to produce more than just dark depths. Previously, depths allowed him to stage depths, take down the Liliana, continue to maze it the thing.
So Zach Allen, a 2-0 winner over Matt Bimonte. Their team takes the first match. Jeff Stevens on that last turn, by the way, they both discard off Liliana. Stevens had to exile his 3rd life from the Loam. It's becoming problematic. Also, if this Liliana of the Veil ultimates, then Stevens loses one of his mazes of Ith. Hogan's going to do that. As long as he splits the stage and the maze, one of his creatures should deal damage. And he's going to go the opposite way. He actually lets Jeff Stevens keep both mazes, but made him lose all his other permanents.
Also not bad.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that. And Stevens will start rebuilding. Stoneforge Mystic from Hoogland. That's another lethal attacker.
Yeah, Stevens now down to 1.
Yeah, and that's going to do it. Jeff Hoogland takes game number 2.
And players going to reanalyze their sideboards here. Looks like Byrd offering some assistance on Stevens' sideboard here.
Yeah, they're all. It's going to be all in on this game number 3. Kent Ketter 2-0 defeats Nicholas Byrd in the modern match. So it's all down to a legacy game 3, which by all rights, this is Jeff Hoogland winning 1 game out of this is already quite the effort.
It's above expectation. Yeah. That's what I'll say on the matter. Rest in Beast kind of came down.
He's got 1. He really needs it. Right. He has 1 copy of the card. If he, and if it's in his opener again, maybe it's fine. If he has if Hoogland's opener is Thoughtseize, Rest in Peace, and he can Thoughtseize away a Krosan Grip and then Rest in Peace his opponent. Sure, yeah. I like him.
He also didn't produce any surgical extractions in this game. In that game, there is a little bit of awkwardness in properly leveraging that one. Grove of the Burnwell is Punishing Fire is pretty good at skirting around surgical extraction. You can just make your opponent gain a life with the Grove and get your Punishing Fire back in response. Cycling lands and Life from the Loam can propose a similar problem where you just dredge your Life from the Loam in response to Surgical.
Yeah, especially because of the cards like Tranquil Thicket or
Right. Or Horizon Canopy.
Yeah, it's not perfect. So they're going to get ready. The third and deciding game here. The whole round will hinge on it. Now, Overstar's on the SCG Tour, new to the tour this season, is the Infinite Challenge package. So this is different than the Classics and the main event. So we have a 2-day package, which includes entering into all challenge events that we have all weekend long. These are 4-round events in every different format. So when the SCG Tour comes to your area, this is a perfect thing for the player who wants to come and battle, but maybe can't play the entire weekend worth. So you get entering into all the events. You also get one of the exclusive playmats from entering. This is starseedgames.com/schedule. It happens every weekend here on the SCG Tour.
Infinity Magic.
Looks like a mulligan for Jeff Hoogland, which means Stevens has kept on 7. You got to be wary. Some of Stevens' 7s are just lights out.
Yes. And Hoogland is looking for pretty specific things.
Well, right. I mean, the issue is Rest in Peace is a great weapon. Hoogland only has 1 copy, though. So,
for playing a format like Modern, and you're playing a Stoneforge Mystic deck, pretend it was legal.
Sure.
A hand with Stoneforge Mystic is on average going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
In Legacy, you have to ask a lot more from your deck.
Yeah, especially in this matchup. There's just not many cards for Hoogland that do much. He'll scry to the bottom as we start. Mox Diamond. Discarding Mazavith. Casting Mana Bond. Playing a land, gambling. Let's just do everything. Hoogland looked like he has kept 3 lands, Tide Hollow Scholar, Stoneforge Mystic, and Swords to Plowshares.
That hand is on the low side of acceptable.
Yeah, it's a 6. So it gives you an answer against the first 20/20, gives you a threat. But yeah, it's one of those hands you keep and think, I'm probably not going to win this.
Yeah.
So, gamble. Which card will Stevens discard? Life from the Loam, probably what he gambled for. Mana Bond puts the other cards into play. It's Thespian Stage and Wasteland. He says go.
Rishadan-Port.
Oh, thank you, Rishadan-Port. Is there a Surgical Extraction in Hoagland's hand? It would do tons here. They're going to end step. Stevens will port the Marsh Flats. It's a strong play.
Yeah, may as well force that action. You're not doing anything else with this mana.
Yeah, it does Hoogland. And the issue is that now a Wasteland could remove it. So Stevens will dredge Life from the Loam into Loam, Thespian Stage, and Taiga.
A little excitement there from Hoogland. None of those are either Wasteland,
None of those are Wasteland?
or Dark Depths.
Oh, here's 3 more lands that Stevens will then put all of them into play with Mana Bond. So he's got 6 lands to Hoagland's 1.
This is a reasonable card, Mana Bond.
Yeah. I mean, with the acceleration Mana Bond offers, Stevens will likely start using these stages to copy his ports and just never give Hoogland mana. A little surprised that Hoogland even got mana for this turn. Oh, no, Maze can't tap.
That's why Hoogland didn't crack the Marsh Flats there.
Sure.
Gave him the ability to cast a 2-drop on this turn.
Dredging Loam again does Stevens. Finds Horizon Canopy and Maze of Ith. And yeah, it looks like on end step Stevens did turn that Thespian Stage into a second Rishadan-Port. So put all the lands into play. Says go. Upkeep, he will port down the lands. In response, Hoogland puts that Batter Skull into play using Stoneforge Mystic.
So Stevens has this covered with multiple Maze of Iths.
Right. You know, the issue is that because Stevens is developing on the board so strongly, these cards, even like Rest in Peace, it's not clear whether they're good enough. Another Dredge of Loam finds 1 more land, finds another Rishadan-Port.
Not exciting, but it's fine.
He'd love to find that Tranquil Thicket.
Yes.
Then he can really start doing stuff.
Multiple times a turn. That'd be very nice.
Yeah, he'll port both lands down.
Wasteland for Hoogland. That's not going to be very effective in this game.
And they're just on different axes here. While we get some interesting games like those game 2s, there are enough of the games where Hoogland never gets to play. The prison deck can be too powerful.
And that's one of the downsides of these black-white stone blade decks. You don't have any free games. Lands does get free games.
Horizon Canopy sacrifice there to dredge life from the loam from Stevens. He'll dredge the second one. This time there's now a Tranquil Thicket in his yard along with the Horizon Canopy he just sacrificed. So we actually have a lot of great targets here.
And Dark Depths just showed up to the party as well.
Yeah, so lots of choices to loam back. I guess he can play both loams. He can just have it all if he wants. Takes everything except the Tranquil Thicket. Is he going to cast the other one? Wooded Foothills. He'll use his Mana Bond trigger to discard his whole hand, the rest of the lands into play. And then go ahead and fetch. And he can do that. Jeff was checking to make sure that works. So Dark Depths will have 10 counters on it. And now, because Thespian Stage is in play, he's threatening the 2020 this turn. There is a Wasteland on Hoogland's side, but actually Stevens can still get around the Wasteland.
That's going to be tapped by these Rashadan ports.
So Stevens' end step taps the Wasteland. Then if Hoogland tries to use it, he makes the 2020. And if it's tapped, he'll make a 2020. But he might as well upkeep tap Jeff out of Hoogland out of land. He's got a bunch of Rashadan ports. Looks like he'll let him have the black mana.
Yeah, the black mana can't cast Swords to Plowshares. And even if this fails, Stevens just life from the loams and combos again.
And it did. He actually made the 20. He made the 2020, and Hoogland's Swords did. Didn't matter though. We'll see what Hoogland can do here. Stevens up to 39.
Stevens setting Thespian Stage Dark Depths on the top of his graveyard. These ones are coming back next turn.
Absolutely. Dredge Loam. Some more. Now he has basically all the lands in his deck in his yard, or at least one copy of each land. He'll loam the combo back into play. This is forcing Hoogland to have a Swords to Plowshares every turn, unless Hoogland can find a Surgical Extraction this turn. And even now, it's not clear that's enough.
Yeah, and if Hoogland does have that Swords, Stevens is at the low life total of 38, so
he'll have some time to draw something. Well, the issue is, right, even if he manages to take the Loam Engine offline, like, there's so many Rashadan ports here. When is Hoogland going to ever get to have mana?
Right, or attack with a creature because of all these Maze of Iths.
Yeah, the ice counters go on the Dark Depths. Yeah, he'll make it 2020 again. Hoogland actually does have the answer. He'll Swords it again. Stevens up to 58. This is something where I think Stevens is being a little inefficient about this, but I have trouble complaining between different lines that are just going to win, you know.
Given that Hoogland's still fighting it out, I think it's fair to assume that he's already eaten lunch. He's got nowhere to be.
For team events, it's very interesting. When I play on my own, I have a tendency to like scoop these games and just go do something else. When I play with teammates, something about that gets me to stay in it longer, you know?
I actually only played one team event at this point in time, and was playing Modern Unified, got stuck on Affinity, so I was typically done first. There was one time I was the last one done, though. I
was playing Krark Clan Ironworks that event. I was never done first.
You never even lost a quick one?
No. No, I was always, you know. It's great, though. That's how I want to spend my weekend. Sometimes I even got to win. 3 lands, the Tranquil Thicket and the combo back, all loamed back. Cycle Tranquil Thicket to get the next loam. 3 more cards in the yard. There's one way to do it. You could just put multiple copies back in play. He's gonna
you just combo twice.
cast both Loams.
Hoogland can only draw one Swords to Plowshares a turn.
There's only 2 left in the deck. Loam again, so it gets back more lands. I think if you remember now, Dark Depths is legendary, but Stevens only has 1 copy of that. He has lots of Thespian stages. I think if he wants to really lock this out, he would take a turn off to make sure all his Thespian stages were ports and just get all Jeff's mana. It's really hard to do this wrong. Here, all these things come back into play. Look at them all.
Yeah, it would be impressive if there was a line that was wrong enough to make it matter.
Yeah, I mean, Stevens has enough lands where he could just start thawing Dark Depths. It wouldn't even take. It wouldn't even take very long.
So it would take a couple short turns.
Yeah, it's like, okay, port you out, go thaw this. Yeah, 30 mana is acceptable.
So from the side, Ken Ketter gesturing towards Stoneforge Mystic. Hoogland, you drew your deck's namesake card.
This card's really good in Legacy. I thought this card's supposed to be good in Legacy now.
How are you losing by this much?
Oh, okay, good. He saw the Mazovitz. Says go.
Didn't want to fall from 57.
And Hoogland says, all right, I don't have a 3rd Swords. That's going to do it. So the team of Jeff Stevens, Nicholas Byrd, and Zach Allen win the round. That win will move them up to 6-1 with 2 rounds to play. For the team of Hoogland, Ketter, and Bimonte, when we saw the deck lists, we knew this was going to be a tough round. That they took it down to the final game is really impressive on their part.
Yeah, and Ketter winning 2-0 against Byrd.
That's great.
Dredge versus Ad Nauseam. Yeah, that's kind of an upset.
Yeah, I mean, it's the closest of the matchups, I think. It's the one that I'd be most likely to see the upset in. But yeah, I mean, they got 3 games in that, and that's really impressive.